Alright. We are live, everyone. I think the stream health should be better than yesterday. How is it going? Let's get these comments rolling. Hello, everyone. How's it going? It's your host, founder, and conductor of this wild ride, Demetrius Villa, and we're continuing from yesterday, part 2. Hello, everyone. To get all through the stuff that we're talking about today, let's get to the first article here and get started. Yep, the stream seems a lot stronger now. Got the encoder going, having my protein shake, and we are good. Stay strong, folks. Stay strong. Did I catch the new Vice video and infrastructure? No, I did not. I know I saw it in my recommendations. I just have not seen it yet. But please do link it. Alright. So we're continuing this from yesterday. And we were talking about a couple things yesterday, including coronavirus and its effect on transportation. So we're going to get right into that as well. But first, let's go over what we're going to talk about today. Talking about Bombardier. And they're selling off of their rail business. If you're in Ohio, be sure to check out the Acela train, the Avalia train, because this article got it wrong. The new Avalia is going to be passing through there as it's going to be going for testing over in Colorado. Yeah, I'm sorry if you guys thought it was going to be at the same time, but I said 7, because usually by 8 o'clock I start turning things off and getting to rest early. We got rural Texas counties to hold public hearing on high-speed rail project, as well as this milestone over here. So Texas released what the train is going to look like inside the whole layout. I got this from the Discord server from a user named Ziggy. We'll talk about that as well. A little bit more about Canada, because we were talking about yesterday about the shutdown in Canada as Canada National and Via Rail, depending on where you're from in Canada, is shut down because of the protests going on about the pipeline on Native American soil, or Native Canadian, North American. And of course, coronavirus and its effect on the economy. And it's also, to calm down a little bit of the situation here again, there are some things that do freak me out about this virus, because it's not the same as any other virus, and there are some things that we do need to, take into consideration as well in regards to history, especially the Spanish flu, which, funny enough, actually came from China. It's not the Spanish flu, so don't blame the Spaniards for the flu. It was the Chinese again. But let's go over and let's start talking about this. Any questions you got in the comments, feel free to comment below. I'll go ahead and answer them. But first, let's talk about this. So again, we said about how the coronavirus is shutting down a whole lot of train services in China, since China has the largest network of high-speed rail anywhere else in the world. So it's crazy now how the rail links have stopped. So if you have been keeping up with what's going on over in Hong Kong, of course, the massive protests against the Chinese Communist Party and government, as well as the extradition laws and other demands as well from the Hong Kong people. This has completely put a whole new monkey in the wrench of things, to go ahead and say the least, or has infected the protests. As now, for the last 2 weeks, rail links have been stopped between China, mainland China, and Hong Kong, cutting that off. Now, Ruiz Railroad said if it weren't for bat soup, coronavirus wouldn't have happened. We don't know if it was just bat soup or if it was indeed a bioweapon, as some people have been saying, and a lot of sources have been saying that this came out of a bioweapons lab near Wuhan. So, who knows? But yeah, this is what's really going on. Everybody's wearing masks, of course. So, if you haven't gotten one, I've had one for the longest of time, whenever I got to clean my car, but, paint it and clean up in the house or whatnot. But you never know. I'm just finding more excuses to wear this. That's all I am. But if you look at this now, it's causing panic. Everybody's freaking out. And, again, you're going to have people say, oh, but you can you can die from car accidents more. More people die from car accidents than they die from the virus. Yeah, well, they don't shut down entire cities because of the car accidents. Well, they shut down entire highways. Bats also called Ebola. Yeah, don't eat the meat. Ebola in town. But this is worse than Ebola, apparently, because this is a much more massive population that is affected. And again, everybody's wearing protective masks everywhere. It looks like it's some sort of pandemic that you would see in the movies. Except it's a lot more realistic. It's not people turning into zombies. It's not The Last of Us or anything like that. But, there are some good things about having this type of network. Okay, apart from having people moving around fast enough in order to spread the disease, that's the bad thing about having a high-speed rail network or any other high-speed transportation network, whether it's cars or whether it's planes or trains. At least with planes and trains, you can be able to control and shut down. You can't really shut down highways as effectively or easily because people are in control of their cars. So, of course, they can always circumvent any blockades you do, and you can't close off entire highways, roads, and cities in order to do that. That's unless you're China, and then again, it's pretty hard to do that. And they have been putting cement and pouring them onto roads and building makeshift walls or closing off people in apartments. But here's the cool thing about this. So they're able to send medical supplies pretty efficiently and quickly from city center to city center because of this high-speed rail network. Yeah, Ruben said, yeah, you can't shut down highways. LA is doing it thanks to traffic jams. That is a good point. Grambo, hey Demetrius, what's up? Is there anything I've missed? Nothing so far. We're going through it. Seems like oh boy. The minute I talk about coronavirus, YouTube seems to be hitting my stream. It says I have bad video settings here, but it seems everything is live on what I'm looking at on OBS, so I don't know. Let me know if everything gets going. Good. The next Great Wall of China will encircle Wuhan. But yeah, this is at least the good thing about this is having the ability in the network in order to move supplies in and out quickly and efficiently as possible. So that's at least a good thing. Again, 190 tons of materials, including gloves, masks, medicine, divided into 343 batches were transported by rail. So, they're using passenger rail in order to move, quick cargo out. So that's the good thing about it. You don't have to have a whole network of freight rail. You can use the passenger rail and, fold down the seats or put stuff on the seats, and it's a makeshift cargo train. So it's pretty ingenious that they're using it for that. Not ingenious that they let this thing out and start infecting the whole entire world. I'm probably lying about it. Some people have been saying, well, it's probably closer to 100,000 people dead at this rate. We don't know. We won't ever know. Yeah, that's probably it. Chauncey said here, I've heard coronavirus is flagged content on YouTube, which is ridiculous, It's a platform where people are allowed to speak freely on. It's it's what it is. It's a public square, according to the U.S. Constitution. So we should be able to speak freely about whatever it is, as long as we're not inciting violence or, causing violence. Really, that's the only thing it should be, against. You can say whatever you want on it, as long as you're not causing violence. But again, putting a wrench in what's going on in Hong Kong and how it's hitting the economy too. Because remember, 80% of the country of China, where 80% of the economy is based, is affected by this. So essentially, 80% of the economy is shut down, and they may lose about 2% GDP, which is a pretty big deal because China's GDP as it stands right now is around 5.5%. We don't know if they're lying about that or not because it could be 2 points lower. It could be closer to 3 or 4%. But if they have a 2% drop, that puts us where our GDP is currently now at around 2% or 2.2%. That puts us around even with China or possibly even higher than China because of this. So this is a big deal. Yeah, Ruben's got a point on that. 73,000 cases confirmed over the double is the real number. The reasons why you don't hear much more about the coronavirus is because the Chinese government is already burning up hundreds of courses because they don't want to cause panic. Yeah, that's absolutely true. If you guys do check, there's a website called Windy. I used it during when Hurricane Irma was bashing through Florida in order to check on the weather, the wind speed, and whatnot, because we had a tree that was about to smash into our house. So we needed to make sure we could be able to get outside and try to, pull up the tree before the worst of the weather comes in. This is in the middle of a hurricane, mind you, okay? So we're getting soaked in water and wind trying to pull off this massive gum tree, but luckily the house wasn't hurt. My car was smashed, though. My Ford Focus CX-3 with the manual transmission was smashed, but it was a hero. It saved the house. There was no other way that we could be able to save it. But look at this. Travel plunges 41.6% in civil air travel, 41.5% in rail travel, 25% for road transportation. So those are big declines during the Lunar New Year. So again, we've already talked about this. Let's talk about the historical effects of this and how it would really affect here. So let's say in the United States, worst case scenario, we have a Spanish flu type pandemic, similar to what happened after the end of World War I. Again, you had millions of young men and soldiers. If you guys have seen 1917, you should see it. It's a good movie. I've been following World War I for the longest of time. So it was good to have them before Battlefield 1 too. Okay, so don't say I only got into World War 1 because of Battlefield 1, but it was probably the worst war for soldiers by far, and really a change in warfare dynamics. But this is pretty interesting. What happened to the economy after this? So this is a very massive economic implication and research into what happened during to the economy and also to other places as well during the 1918 influenza pandemic. And there's also there's another article over here from City Lab about the Spanish flu during over in New York. So again, this is interesting. So here you go. Here you got a train. Yeah, Ruben's correct. Yeah, so if you guys are familiar with Belgium got smashed through the war because Germany thought it would be a great idea, instead of going through France's bulkhead through the Alsace-Lorraine, they were just, you know what, we'll just go through Belgium and, just smash through that entire country. We'll just skip right into France instead of trying to go into France the hard way. So Belgium, to this day, there are still shells in Belgium that are unexploded. There are still, you can see the trenches that are still there. It's quite horrific to see this landscape and how it's still there after more than 100 years. It's just insane. But again, this is pretty interesting over here. So going back to this, so here you go. You got a trolley over New York, and everybody's wearing masks except for this one guy. And this guy's, making sure, hey, don't come in now. They'll come in. Conductor checks to see if potential passengers are wearing masks in Seattle, Washington. Oh wait, this is Seattle, Washington. What am I saying? I thought this was New York. But I was looking at New York specifically because I had an article here about the health effects of New York. I don't know why it's not here anymore. But, again, to see what happened during this, most of the economic effects were short-term, mostly. So, like I said yesterday, if coronavirus, again, if it is such the nothing burger that it is, if it's a flu and it's just going to infect some people, it'll be out and over for a couple months, then most likely we're going to see something like this. Even worst case scenario, let's say, Thanos just snaps his fingers and half the world's population goes. Again, this is pretty much what's going to happen as well. And again, the Spanish flu came off the heels of a devastating war as well. The world's most devastating war, for that the world has seen up to that point. But you can have numbers over here about total deaths, influenza mortality cities in 8 different districts. You see Louisville, Memphis, Nashville, St. Louis, Kansas City, Chicago, and Indianapolis. I'm hoping it doesn't come to Indianapolis. Please, go away. Go away, Corona Chan. Don't come to Indiana. We don't want you here. Go away. But this is pretty crazy, the amount of deaths that happen. And again, everything spikes around 1918, which is, when the war ended, November 11th. So everybody was going back home, and everybody just, spread the disease everywhere. So that's usually what happens when you have a lot of people moving around, a lot of unchecked migrations of people. This is usually what happens, especially during the worst time that it could have happened, when a lot of Chinese people are going ahead and traveling because of the Lunar New Year. So, pretty insane. So, yeah, this is pretty interesting over here. So, reading this, where was it? Right over here. So in Memphis, Tennessee, influenza crippling Memphis industries. Physicians report they are kept too busy combating the disease to report the number of their patients and have little time to devote to other members. Industrial plants are running under a great handicap. Many of them were already short of help because of the draft. Out of a total of 400 men used in the transportation department of the Memphis Street Railway, 124 men were incapacitated yesterday. That's more than 25%. That's about 30% of people. You know? This curtailed service. Again, the Cumberland Telephone Company reported more than 100 operators absent from their posts. The telephone company asked that unnecessary calls be eliminated. So, again, we have some changes from this. You know, a lot of this stuff is automated now. I don't have to go ahead on my phone and call for the operator and then get the operator to go ahead and switch the lines to something else. Although, as cool as it looks in the movies, it'd probably be annoying after a couple times of making calls. So, this is pretty fun. Well, pretty interesting to see. I wouldn't say fun. This is not fun at all to be in here. As much as people want to go ahead and pretend they're prepping and, you know, hoarding 22 LR like I am and, you know, getting MREs and dry food supply, you know, just in case of worse comes to worse. I mean, this is not fun to be in. If you guys have been in hurricanes, it's not fun. You know, it's fun for a couple of minutes, but then afterwards, when the electricity goes out and FP&L can't get on their ass to go ahead and fix the pole as they were supposed to do, it's not fun anymore. Survey of economic research. Again, there's a lot of stuff in here about what happened to here. But again, here's the summary. Most of the evidence indicates that the economic effects of the 1918 influenza pandemic were short-term. Many businesses, especially those in the service and entertainment industries, suffered double-digit losses in revenue. Other businesses that specialize in healthcare products experienced an increase in revenues. So if you're looking at the stocks, go ahead and put those stonks in the healthcare industry if you really want to see an uproar. Let's see who's in the comments over here. Mohammed Qureshi said, the risk is it comes back in the fall as a strain of the annual flu. The world will need to stay vigilant for the next 12 to 18 months. That's absolutely correct, because there was another study that came out that in the same study it said that the coronavirus could cause infertility in men, kidney damage, and could also come back a second time around and cause even more damage than the first strain did. So this is pretty scary. Ricardo Noel, what's up, D? What's up, Ricardo? David Mitchell, I've been in a hurricane and it is not fun. No, it is not. I've been in too many hurricanes. I've had enough of the hurricanes. You know, if anybody wants to go to Florida, be my guest. I'm done. Every single summer, it's always a scare. Putting up borders and putting up putting it up, and then the hurricane doesn't come, so you put them down, and then you put them up again, and then it's really coming. So up and down, up and down. But this is going on to this. See, research also suggests that the 1918 influenza caused reductions in human capital for those individuals in utero during the pandemic, therefore having implications for economic activity occurring decades after the pandemic. But here's the crazy thing after this, okay? Because after the pandemic, okay, you had the Roaring 20s, the 1920s. So a lot of people have said that, you know, especially millennials, that we can't find jobs because a lot of these jobs are taken by other people or, you know, let's say older people. Again, I'm not saying the virus is going to go ahead and wipe out all the boomers. That's not another thing that I'm saying. But, you know, especially over in Japan, okay, Japanese millennials have a massive problem being able to buy housing. They're stuck. All they got right now is they're, in their apartments. And it's a pretty depressing type of life for them. Because there's no upward mobility because they're just stuck. You look at any graph of, the age population and age disparity between the Japanese population. It is very heavily tied. It's like an upside down pot toward the older age folks. So, again, pandemics, cullings, they happen in history and nature. This is just natural. What happened during the Black Plague in Europe? I mean, a third of Europe, more than a third of Europe was destroyed because of it. So, this could be a chance to build new things. This could be, something else. We don't know. Okay, but just stay safe out there, guys. Again, I'll put this in the comments below as well, or I'll put this in the description so you guys can be able to visit these sites and go ahead and check them out. But pretty cool so far. And again, there's lessons from remembering the mother of all pandemics 100 years later. What happened in New York City. It was about like 30,000 people that died in New York City because of this. And they were piled up in like bodies on the street. And again, life just continued on as usual. Everybody going to work in masks and whatnot. So again, if they were able to survive this, on the same scale that we're talking about, maybe it's kind of the same scale because New York back then was pretty freaking dirty. I mean, it was bad. You think New York is bad now? You could have seen back then. It was pretty bad. It's dirty. Okay, they don't have the same modern technology or I would just say modern sanitation restrictions that we have today. So, I mean, if coronavirus, if the Spanish flu were to happen today, it wouldn't be as bad as it was back in here. But now that we have the coronavirus, we don't know. Again, let's hope that this isn't a bioweapon because that's the other thing that will change it up. If it's a bioweapon, this would really mess up things badly. But you can see over here again, death rates per 1,000 living at each age group from influenza and pneumonia. And again, unfortunately, it seems like it was killing mostly the millennials back then, if you want to say so. Not really good. I'll also put this down in the comments below if you guys want to go ahead and see this. But I was reading through this article here. Very interesting. All right. Let's go read the comments and then we'll go to the next story. Again, we had a live stream yesterday, so we're going to keep this one a little bit shorter. So we're at 21 minutes here. Let's see what the comments have said right now. Yeah, David Mitchell, go to the mountains, man. I'm with you there. I'll stay in the hills and the mountains. Nobody's going to visit me there. Nobody's going to bring the plague. Black Plague kills Venice, Paris, and London. Bruges, Ghent, and Antwerp suddenly becoming the economic centers. I see this as an absolute win. Adam Busser, you're here. What did you miss? Oh, you missed the whole economic rundown of what will happen with the coronavirus. So, again, rundown, short-term economic loss, but in the long term, we'll be fine. Because, again, what happened after the 1920s was the Roaring 20s. So, this happens. This isn't cycles, okay? It happens. Now, but seriously, this is pretty bad. I hope for the best for anyone going through this. I'm with you too there, Wolf and God. Mohammed Qureshi, the government should move some government agencies out of D.C. to the Midwest, similar to how they moved the CDC to Atlanta, spread the wealth, and make cost of living cheaper for the millennial labor force. That would be a terrible idea. I'm going to tell you right now. D.C. is expensive as hell to live in. It is an expensive city. I've been there plenty of times. I have no interest of really being there or staying there any longer than maybe 2 days. It smells. It basically is a literal swamp, or was built on a literal swamp. And usually when you bring government agencies, usually what happens is that costs go up for everybody living there. I'd rather they don't. I mean, having state governments, and the way that Indianapolis is put out in the middle of the state, it's pretty good. It's a cheap city to live in too. Very inexpensive, and there's a lot of great stuff to do around the city. And you're close to everywhere else. You're close to Chicago, you're close to Louisville, Cincinnati, a whole bunch of other places. So you're fine. Oh great, the Spanish flu was a boomer. Dan, rest in peace, Demetrius. Please no. David Mitchell, I'd rather go to the mountains because mud cooler. I don't have to deal with the swampy mugginess and the hurricane. Yeah, the humidity gets to you after a while. Ricardo Noel, do you think the coronavirus will have effects in Tokyo during the Olympics? So I was looking at that this morning as well, because I'm like, wait a second. This thing lasts a couple months. It goes through the summer months because, flus also get pretty bad in the summer and the mugginess. People do get sick there. Not as much as in the spring, but now you have a whole lot of people coming into Tokyo, especially right now with, I think, the Diamond Princess cruise line that's stuck there, and it's about like close to 200 or 400 people that are infected. I don't quite recall the last numbers that they have, but this is, again, if you have so many people now moving into there, are they going to stop the Olympics? They said they're going to run it as scheduled. That's the last from what I saw, I think from an article from Friday. If this does escalate, will it affect the Olympics? Probably so. It probably will affect the Olympics up to the point of maybe canceling it if this gets really bad to pandemic bad levels. And I mean like World War Z levels. We don't know. Daniel C., I need your good karma. There you go. Good karma for everybody. I don't really believe in karma, but that's fine. Can we find these articles on your website or on Medium? I had been looking to go back onto Medium. Need help with that. I probably will put out in the next couple months or so, maybe calls for anybody who wants to submit articles to Medium. I wanted to make it more of a platform for people who want to submit their own research, submit their own articles on RaIl, and put them out there and become published authors. And published authors, not authors. Okay, we don't need too many people with yellow sweaters and glasses, but what we do need is people that are passionate about RaIl, like all of you guys. And if you're interested in actually going ahead and research or putting out photo journals, research of your own, if you're in college, and publishing it on there, be my guest. You can let me know what you think about that, but I'll probably put out in the next couple months or so. Let's see. Indy does not have light rail. Yeah, we are doing an episode later in the next 2 months about the BRT and doing something about BRT, also circling around on the red line over in Indianapolis. Daniel C., I'm presenting a brand new spanking new HSR. I think I saw new too many times, but you wrote new one. It's on me, buddy. Brand spanking new HSR design and business model tomorrow, so thanks for that. Of course. Public Arthur, a new future joke for Transport Central. Oh, God. You guys are going to use that. All right, so let's talk about business here. So Bombardier. If you guys are familiar with Bombardier used to make a whole bunch of rail sets. They made a couple for Tri-Rail. They're probably most famous for making the Acela Express on Amtrak. But in the last couple of years or so, they haven't done quite well economically. They've been going up against some serious competition, especially over from China and their train sets, which are significantly cheaper than the Canadian rail sets from Bombardier. So they haven't had quite the best of luck. Of course, they've been overclassed by Siemens and Alstom, which they have better train sets. Let's be honest. They have better equipment. They have better manufacturing processes than Bombardier. No offense to anybody who likes Bombardier or used to, work there or whatnot. But they're now selling the train business to Alstom. Okay, so Alstom is making the Avelia now. So I can see something happening from here. Which would be pretty good. But let me go ahead and explain this. So the deal is reportedly worth $7.5 billion, and while Bombardier to eliminate most of its crushing $9 billion in debt. So if you guys think you're doing bad and you're in $20, $30, $100,000 in student debt, try being $9 billion in debt. Of course, if you're the CEO, you don't really have to do that much about it if you have golden parachutes. But Bombardier doesn't have that much of an excuse to do that because they're not going to get government subsidies from this, apparently. On Thursday, Bombardier CEO Alain Belmer, I think I said that correctly, signaled the move. Our transformation in aerospace is largely complete, Belmer told a conference call last week after announcing it was selling its 31% stake in the Airbus A220 airliner. So they also make airlines as well, but they're getting rid of their rail sector. Same thing like what GE did, and they sold it over to Wabtec for 49% stake, and now they're giving them 51% stake and probably selling off. GE is not going to be making trains anymore as well because, again, there's so many companies now that can do this, especially with CHR, the Chinese rail company, really undercutting a lot of these weaker companies that have less of a market share. It's really shaking up competition. So, of course, the weak are really getting shaken out from here, like GE and Bombardier. Okay, but GE was very strong over here in the United States, so it was very weird to see them. GE was losing out on a whole lot of other business dealings, so they really had a massive shakeup of the entire industry with GE, especially being kicked out of I think the New York Stock Exchange See some of the comments over here. Bombardier bombs themselves into nothing. Yeah, Trax ALP46. The Chinese even copy Trax products for the RaIl network. Yeah, it's funny how the Chinese have copied a lot through what they call reverse engineering. It's basically stealing. That's what they've done. They take in the designs. They say thank you very much. They go ahead, take it apart, and go ahead and make their own and say this doesn't look nothing like you did. This is completely Chinese technology. I have many times wanted to do a video about the truth about Chinese high-speed rail. I don't think it's such a great time right now to do that. So we're talking about China, guys. Not quite the way we're doing. Yeah, GE have built locomotives for China before. Yes, a lot of diesel trains, and I know that because I was in the industry myself. Something very interesting is going to happen in the future. Don't forget Siemens and Alstom are going to plan a merger. That's true. They are merging as well in order to compete with CRH. With Bombardier out of the market, HSR will be Eurogang versus Gang versus Weeb Tech. Is that supposed to be Japan? CRH is a DeviantArt user. Oh boy. Please don't post any DeviantArt users here. Go away. The Siemens Alstom deal was prohibited by the European Union. Was that? I haven't kept up with that in a while. So was it? Funny enough, your username is Bombardier Transportation. Are you going to change that up? Or are you going to keep that? Weeb Tech, Japanese indeed. Okay. Like Hitachi and Kawasaki. Alright, so for those of you who are train weebs, if you live in the Ohio area or close to the Ohio area and don't have anywhere to go tomorrow, like me, that I'm going to wake up at stupid early in the morning to go work out because I'm crazy and then go to work after that. So going at night to go see this happening, probably not a good idea. But for those of you who do, not saying anything bad about that, but please go ahead and do it. You may have a chance to go ahead and see the Avelia. So please ignore what Mr. David Patch wrote here. It's not the Acela train. It is the Avelia Express that will be going into there. So a glimpse of a high-speed rail's future in the United States is expected to pass through Toledo on Monday night. That is Monday night tonight, when Amtrak sends a prototype for its next generation Avelia train to Colorado for testing. The train, built by Alstom in Hornell, New York, is slated to leave the factory Monday morning in tow behind Amtrak diesel locomotives for a trip to the Transportation Technology Center Proving Grounds near Pueblo, Colorado, where it will undergo 9 months of high-speed tests, Amtrak said in a statement announcing the move. So this is pretty exciting. I don't have any more information of what time it's going to be there, but you guys are mean to people in Ohio. I'm the same way too. I can't stand them driving. Imagine living in Ohio. Imagine living in Ohio. I don't know if that's implying it's a good thing or a bad thing. I imply it as something that will probably drive me nuts. I hate driving in Ohio because people seem to hog the left lane and then go the slowest possible. And then go to any other state and do the same thing as well. High speed tests. Yeah, you can say both ways in Colorado. High speed tests. Yeah, Columbus, Ohio, I hear is nice. I haven't been to Columbus, Ohio, but I live in Columbus, Indiana, funny enough. Alright. Going somewhere else, also pretty rural. Texas. Let's go here. Ruben says, you hate Ohio. Let me introduce Illinois. I haven't been to really other parts of Illinois outside of Chicago. I know there's a whole, basically Illinois outside of Chicago is basically Indiana too. That's all it is. Indiana 2, Electric Boogaloo. Welcome to rural Texas, where now the counties are going to hold public hearings on the high-speed rail projects. So this has been going on for the longest of time, ever since close to when we started this channel. Can't build Texas Central Railway because the government needs to approve this, and we need to get through all the EIS studies. And of course, over here, the FRA needs to go ahead and hold these public hearings to see comments and get this all approved. Blah-de, 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 blah. This is why we can't have nice thing in this country. It's insane. So look at this. So Representative Kevin Brady, a Republican of Texas, said he secured a commitment from Ronald Battery, FRA administrator, to hold a public hearing for Texans living in rural communities who might have issues with the project. This is just insane. Brady opposes Texas Central high-speed rail project that could one day connect Dallas to Houston via a 90-minute train ride. What is wrong with that? But again, he probably wouldn't say anything if the government was going to go ahead and, let's say increase the size of the highway or build another highway. Because they'll go ahead and do it, right? All we want is for our rural voices to be heard. You've been heard for the last years. You've been heard for the last 5 years. Brady said in the prepared statement, Administrator Battery is committed to reaching out beyond just Dallas and Houston to hear directly from our landowners and community leaders about the impact on our rural communities, including safety worries, damage to a rural countryside, and documented questions about the financial shakiness of this controversial project. Of course, nobody talks about the financial shakiness of this country or the Department of Transportations that are running these roads, but nobody talks about that. Someone's asking, do we have a Discord? Yes, we do. Let me go ahead and get that link over here for the Transport Central Discord. All right. So here's the link to our Discord, guys. Link expires in about a day, so go ahead and use that. Grambo, he's probably a paid opposition from one of their agents from the aviation industry. I don't think it's the aviation industry. I think it's more of the oil industry. No problem, Daniel. Do enjoy. Welcome to the Transport Central. But here's the crazy thing about this, guys. This should have been done years ago. This should not have taken... it is a link that works. I just got it right now. I'm sorry about yesterday. I thought I put a link that was there for a forever link, but it wasn't. So we got this going now. But back to what I was saying over here. This should have been something that should have been resolved years ago. Okay, the minute they had this project going in, they should have, been able to get this done within a year. All the processes at max. The regulations, the approvals, everything else should have been done max a year. It should have not taken longer than this because it's being stuck in red tape hell. It's being stuck in limbo because, again, it can't wait. Texas Central is waiting for the government to take 2 actions. Issue a final environmental impact study. Again, a final environmental impact study. This should have been done years ago. How long does it take to do an environmental impact study? The train is good for the environment. Train zero emissions. Train don't cause damage. The end. But no, the government has to go ahead and spend millions of dollars on a study. Well, Texas Central Railway is paying for the government to go ahead and do it because if not, if you're Elon Musk and you're doing the Hyperloop, you get the government to pay for you to do an EIS study if you're in Ohio. But hey, don't say anything. This just ruffles my jimmies. Really ruffles my jimmies. Thank you, Aiden Bible. Thank you so much. That's awesome, man. Thank you. All right, let's see what's going on over here. EIS study took 6 years. That is insane. It's been 6 years since this has been going on. God. Guess this one politician needs to be newspaper checked, just as we did with our friends against Go Brightline. Yeah, we gotta go ahead and do this. I remember looking at some of these people. Some of these people are connected to the oil industry. No joke. We have already done that. Studies should exist but be reformed. Yeah, EIS study should not be taking more than a year. This is ridiculous. It's not that long to do an environmental impact study. So they're doing this and a rule of particular applicability, which again, this goes this refers to the eminent domain issues that Texas Central Railway has right now because apparently for the last several years, the opposition has been putting it through court saying that because it is technically not a railroad, they cannot use eminent domain. What is that? What is this? What are those? It's a rail. It's a railroad. It's going to be a railroad. It should have the effect to use eminent domain. This is the laws of this country. I remember also listening to, I think it was on the Mises Institute. I can't recall the name of this professor, but he did something on that, privatizing everything. If it moves, it doesn't move, privatize it. That's But again, he was talking about taking the example of, let's say you have a NIMBY like Cartman from South Park, right? And he doesn't want to allow anything. You can still, let's say, sans the government, you can still be able to build something around that. Because again, let's say somebody who owns this land, on there, they only own the piece of land. They don't own it all the way down to the crust of the earth, and they don't own it all the way up into space. So you can build over them, you can build under them, you can build around them. There's a whole bunch of ways in order to build something like this. Especially, you don't have that much of a movement in terms for high-speed rail, because again, at the speed that it's going in, you can't really move the radius around. Not as much as it is for the Hyperloop. That's going to be a complete conniption. So again, once the government completes those two actions, Texas Central will finally close financing and begin construction as soon as this year, the company has said. It will take between 5 and 6 years to build the tracks and stations once the project get all the necessary approvals. We've been waiting basically 5 and 6 years to get the approvals. It doesn't take that long for the government to do this. The government isn't building anything. This is a private company that has all the financing, all the funding. Okay, they have loans from the Japanese companies, from the Japanese government, very low interest loans. Okay, so nobody in America is going to be paying for this out of their pocketbook or through taxes. Okay, this is going to be financed by other parties through a private party. It should have been built. It should have been built. Privatizing Amtrak. Yeah, that's something. So I just got the book I talked about you guys yesterday, End of the Line. This is going to be my next read by Joseph Ranich, The Failure of Amtrak Reform and the Future of America's Passenger Trains. I would say it's more towards the right about talking about privatizing Amtrak, which is something that I've been saying for the longest of time. Before I even started this, I said Amtrak should be split up, just like the Japanese company. So again, I was also reading this. Here we are. Japanese National Railways, Its Breakup and Privatization. Okay, by Yoshiyuki Kasai. Okay, very interesting. I also used this for the research on the Shinkansen video that I did that has well over 500,000 views. So that's been our most popular video, and it definitely does deserve so. Thank you for everybody who has supported that video and shared it out and has enjoyed it. Thank you so much, guys. But this is probably the next book I'm going to read. Again, this is a little bit of an older book. I probably should be doing like book reviews on something like this. Quick little book reviews about what I think and my reactions to this. This was done in 2004 by the National Research Initiative. I think that's more of like a conservative initiative institute. But again, there's some ideas. Again, we look for both the left and the right. We just want what's right. Not right wing, but what's right. What is the right thing to do? What is the correct thing to do for the nation's infrastructure? That's what we need to look for. But again, this is insane. Release from Brady's office said the FRA expects to announce in February the proposed rules and to begin to seek public comments. So if anybody lives in Texas, I cannot find here. This was last done February. I try to see if any of these, if any of the dates have come out. But we'll probably look ahead and see. I'll keep on track of this and see what's going on. But let's say some good news here about high-speed rail in Texas. So first look at the interior layout of the Texas high-speed train. This is going to be pretty cool. This is going to be pretty exciting. So times are changing for travelers moving between Texas's two largest regions, Houston and North Texas. What was once either a tireless slog or a hurry up to slow down frisking is being replaced by the best travel experience the world has yet to offer. And I can guarantee you, yes, this is probably the best way to travel is by train. I've been on these trains. They are fantastic to ride on, and it's a lot smoother, a lot less stress. It is probably the best way to travel from place to place within 500 miles. I think the EIS study may come out in March, but again, we knowing how the government works, we're just waiting for it because they could definitely go ahead and slow down the EIS study from the FRA's orders in order to go ahead and pull through these public comments. So, not good. No, please don't make me read Das Kapital again. Please don't. Please do not. As you can see, Texas high-speed trains feature 2x2 and 2x1 seating only, with no middle seat ever. This design gives passengers nearly a foot more legroom than most coach airline seats, ensuring the most comfortable ride possible for all riders. So no more waking up your neighbor just to get up to use the restroom. Other important features include wider aisles, improved lighting, and audio and visual signals for train arrivals and departures. So again, very similar to the N700 there. This is more like the reserved class though. This is not the unreserved class, which usually has 3 seats, 3-2. That's usually how the layout is over in Japan. This is, again, it's adapted over to American standards. We like riding 2x2. We like having our space. We want to stretch out and do whatever we want as much as possible and move around, and nobody can, tell us what to do. We like that, okay? But, this is pretty good that they are going ahead and adapting this. So, again, you have 20 inches with 32 inches in between. So, very similar to Brightline, actually, to Virgin Brightline. It's about the same width in order to allow wheelchair access in and through. So again, the same thing like Brightline, where you can be able to go ahead in a wheelchair, be able to go straight into the train without any assistance at all, without losing your dignity like you do on Amtrak, being carried up there like some sort of weird king on a you know what I'm talking about. But it's weird that to have that happen and everybody see you. Now this, you have your sanity back. You can be able to go ahead, go in there, and roll into your seats. So very good. Wide aisles, 32 inches wider than a regional jet. You got a lot of leg room. So again, more room than even in air, and probably more than first class for sure. Definitely more than first class, because I've been on first class accidentally on Spirit Airlines. Well, not accidentally. They hand out first class. Here and there. You entered into a lottery depending on when you bought the ticket. So luckily, I was able to sit on first class for a trip. Not that much different. I mean, I'd rather sit in first class than not on an airplane, because being on an airplane is like being in a sardine can. It's awful. Especially nowadays. So yeah, this is pretty good so far. And there's a user on Transport Central that put out, his name is Ziggy. If you're watching here, Ziggy, glad you're here. Turns out it isn't totally N700 first class setup, but rather similar to the Acela regular class of 2x2. First is 2x1. So there will be 2 inward-facing rows with what can I assume could accommodate a table if the diagram is to believe. They probably are going to put a table. Every Shinkansen has a table. The MBTA center-facing rows got tables, but on the AM fleet there is no table in the facing row on the end. Embedded name on the pic says V1, so this might not be the final, although it is enough for study purposes in my opinion. So that was on Transport Central. Alright, let's see what the comments are. Planes are buses with wings. They are. And I've been on buses plenty of times. If any of you have ever been to FIU or is an FIU alum or current FIU student, we have a coach bus we call the shuttle that shuttles us between the Biscayne campus up in North Miami down to the Modesto Madi campus or MMC campus down over in West Dade. So, I mean, going on that bus every day, an hour, probably more than that when traffic is bad. I've been, probably the longest trip I've been on that was 4 hours, because we got stuck in dead traffic in Miami. It was fucking awful. Yeah, I just cursed there because that's how bad it was. It was just freaking awful. It was bad. Rural judges have too much power, in my opinion. Well, it's kind of fair out because, again, it can be able to move to Supreme Courts. Once it moves to a higher court, it will probably be rescinded. They can't probably move it back down afterwards. Let's see over here. Mohammed Qureshi said freight rail should get government investment in exchange for operating or subsidizing at least a Brightline class passenger service in areas like the Midwest. They were before back in the 60s in order to keep them going, because the government required that passenger rail service at the point, because it was a money losing service because of what the government did in subsidizing roads and air travel. So now the government was trying to keep alive passenger rail after killing it. And, now forcing these rail companies that are already, dying because of the massive amount of taxpayer dollars they had to pay in order to keep the airlines and roads, essentially their competitors, alive because of, again, thanks to the government. Now they were being kept to have these money-losing operations, which was passenger trains back at that time, afloat. So that's really what killed off a lot of these companies. They were merging in order to try to keep themselves alive. It wasn't working, and that was basically the end of the era. That was the end of passenger rail. The golden age of passenger rail in America. The final rail in the coffin. All right, so let's go to the last article over here. So we talked about Canada yesterday and the protests that are going on over there because of the oil pipeline, and you have a lot of Antifa type people that are taking advantage of this and protesting everywhere to shut down the business in Canada, particularly for Canada National, Canada Pacific, and Via Rail has been completely shut down as of right now. They are not running any Via Rail trains currently because of the protest. Again, we talked about this yesterday of how Canada's railway system is set up, how the country is basically set up in a line. Most of the massive urban populations are in a line, are lined up. So that's what happened. So the Canadian government has revised its temporary restrictions on speed limits for freight trains carrying dangerous goods, allowing trains to move faster. So this is, again, this is kind of the good and this is good and bad because the rail company should be able to make their own rules on how fast they move these trains. The bad is that, you guys can see what's on those trains. Not good. We would rather have those on a pipeline rather than on a moving train. So again, I want to see it both ways. We shouldn't want to have everything on trains. We want to have it balanced, but these shouldn't be on trains or on on trucks as much as they are on the roads right now because we don't have enough pipelines. So again, having infrastructure goes both ways. It's also having transportation and also, energy infrastructure is also very important. Canada, trains with oil, how dare you? This is outrageous. Oh, hey, Mr. Truck carrying oil? Sure, enjoy going through city centers. Oh, boy. Yeah, but this is, not good. So now trains can move at 30 or 25 miles an hour. So now it's been revised now to 35 miles an hour in metropolitan areas and 40 miles per hour everywhere else. Again, so they're easing off on that because of the protests going on. So they're trying to go other ways in order to at least keep the economy flowing and keep the oil flowing in Canada, because Canada has a ton of oil. Okay, that whole country can basically run on oil. We do get a lot of oil from Canada as well. I think now if I recall correctly, we're getting more oil from Canada than we're getting from the Middle East, which I would rather get it from the Canadians than the Middle East, giving them enough oil money to go ahead and, cause more problems for us, which we'll have to go over there for and, have more death and destruction for. And one of my lights just died. We're good. I think I just ran out of battery, though. I got to charge them. Or probably should keep it hooked up. That's what I should be doing. All right. So again, following the February 6th incident, the government initially ordered trains hauling 20 or more rail cars of dangerous goods to slow down 20 miles per hour in metropolitan areas and 30 miles per hour everywhere else. Okay. So yeah, again, this keeps continuing on because of the protesting going on in Canada. Has shut down Canada for a week. Canada is closed, guys. Can't go to Canada anymore. All right, so we're going to end it over here. It is 8:01. I think we had a little bit longer of what we were going to be a short live stream. I don't think this was a short live stream. JJ asked, have you researched the Siemens, ThyssenKrupp, Transrapid, maglev technology? Yes, I have. We actually have done a video on maglev tech. It's an older one, the different types of maglevs. I don't know if Siemens' old website, I remember they had like an old funky website. It looked like something from 1999. It had QuickTime movies on there about the maglev. I was looking at those. I don't think they're moving too much on the Siemens maglev technology. They've kind of shelved it for now. The only place where it's really being used is over in China for the Shanghai airport. And God forbid if they're going to be using that anymore now with the coronavirus. Is the U.S. larger in export or import of oil? I think we're now exporting more oil now. Should be. Mr. Trudeau doesn't oil. China to be using the coronavirus to control their people. That's also another point that people have been bringing it up, that China has been using the coronavirus as an excuse to take down political dissidents. You know, somebody who has said something about bad about the Chinese government on Weibo, and then all of a sudden, oh, we heard him cough. Let's go ahead and take him away to the camps, as they're gonna do, to the hospitals where the smokestacks are coming from. Don't mind those smokestacks, everyone. I'm pretty sure these have metal doors. You're right, Adam. It's sad that Chris Crisco blocked the gateway. Oh yeah, Chris Krispy Kreme blocking the gateway tunnel. If they could have just done the gateway project already 10 years ago, it would have gotten done. New York's a lost cause at this point when it comes to the transportation system. I don't see anything really happening with New York. It's just moving very, very slow. All right, so the Midwest meetup, it's probably going to be sometime around this time. So if you guys have not known, I'm going to repeat it again. There's an annual meeting going on for the High Speed Rail Alliance on March 28th from 9 to 3 p.m. at Maggiano's Banquets. Okay, that's going to be over in Chicago, right in Chicago. I believe that's is that North Side? Not quite sure, but pretty nice place in Chicago. So I will most definitely be there. Whether I'll speak or not, I probably will. I'm just trying to figure out what I'm going to speak on. So if you guys got any ideas, let me know. Daniel C. asked, are you having another Florida meetup? Probably not. What we may do is do quarterly meets. So we had our last Florida meet in the winter, December after Christmas. So we're having one for the spring, which will be this one, and we may do one for fall, summer and fall. So that's what we'll probably do. So 4 meetups a year, each quarterly, each for every season. That's probably what we'll do. If we're going to be having ones outside of the U.S., I'm not quite sure. Yeah, we probably will have it as a live event. So what I'll probably do is probably bring a camera as well to get that live stream as well on YouTube, because we had that before live streamed on Facebook, but it didn't come out too well. So far, LaGuardia Airport is a nightmare. Is there an efficient way to get to the airport? Don't go to LaGuardia. That's the most efficient way. Go to Newark. Alright, go to EWR. Do not go to LaGuardia. And probably avoid JFK as well. And whenever I'm going to New York, I always take Newark. I do not go to LaGuardia. Go to Newark. Garbage. That's exactly right, Dan. It's garbage. Oh, Florida man pro poop at alligators. Renell Reed, could you meet up in upstate New York? If there's enough demand for it, definitely. I haven't been to upstate New York in years. Yeah, that's the funny thing about RaIl. So, Cheshire, I think that's how you pronounce your name or your username here. He has a point here. Most people think of RaIl as a liberal leftist idea, when in reality the majority were ran by private industry. That's the truth about RaIl. It really doesn't have a political which way or about. I mean, even this book, Atlas Shrugged, is a libertarian take of, taking on the government and building, basically vibranium railroads, in the middle of nowhere, the John Galt Railroad. Yeah, Florida Man articles get pretty crazy after a while. You get immune by them. It doesn't faze you anymore. Dan Air asked, if I ever go to New York, I'd go to Newark. Not cost New York, but to transfer to fly to Europe. That's also true. Newark does have a lot of good connections over to Europe. They do, especially through United. Even though United breaks guitars. And I'm not really a fan of United, but it's a good airline for what you're getting for the price in comparison to other airlines. Alright guys, probably take one more question, and I'm going to be calling it a night. We're at 59 minutes and 35 seconds. Yeah, for long distance flights, I'd rather United over American Airlines. What's the best book you can suggest for someone to read about RaIl? That's from Holly. Depends on what you want to read about RaIl. I think probably the best book to start with when it comes to learning about maybe high-speed rail is this book by Daniel Al-Balate and Irma Bell, The Economics and Politics of High-Speed Rail. That's probably the best one to start out with. A lot of good things in this. Again, it's a bit older. You know, there's not that much research into high-speed rail that gets really current. Because it's not really an issue that most people find sexy when it actually is. I mean, come on, look at these trains, guys. I mean, come on, you can't say these trains are not sexy. Do I have one of a train here? No. I don't think Carrie Lam is sexy at all. Absolutely not. Let's see. Let's find a. There we go. Look at that. There we go. The Thales area. That's a pretty sexy train. A little retro now, but it's pretty sexy. It says we don't like retro. Alright, so here's a good question. I'll take this as the last question and we'll call it a night here. Why are the railways slandered as unprofitable? Because that's something that most people believe easily, that you say something is unprofitable, it's going to waste taxpayer money, and then they don't want to do it. But they don't say the same thing when it comes to roads. Now, interesting enough, railways have a better chance of making money than they do for roads. Here's the reason why. And we've seen this in Japan as well, because a lot of these railroad companies also own land. Now, land is an appreciable asset. You can build things on land that you cannot do on roads. The only thing you can do on roads is own the roads, and that's it. Maybe the only way you can make money on it is by tolls, maybe by having advertising billboards on the side, but that's basically it. Unless you own property on the sides of roads and charge rent on them, you're not going to be able to make that much money on roads. And we've seen this. I'm also going to probably do a video later on, maybe on my second channel, since it's not rail related, it is transportation related, but also on the Indiana Toll Road and the fiasco with that. Is it truly a private road? We don't know. We'll talk about that as well. If you guys are familiar with the Indiana Toll Road, it's a pretty interesting situation about how everybody was talking about privatizing the roads. It was pseudo-privatized. It's still, there's a lot of government hands in there, so I don't really consider it private. But again, really the issue when it comes to privatization of high-speed rail and also having profitability is mainly due to having the real estate. And again, all these Japanese companies, most of them are in the green and making profits on the rail is because they own the real estate, especially let's say something like JR East or JR Central. They own these massive stations that have lots of real estate, lots and lots of stores and lots of apartments or office buildings. A lot of people go in and out of these stations to go to work. Even if they don't work at these stations serve as central hubs for a lot of city centers. A lot of people just visit them just to visit them, and they're basically the heart of cities and urban centers. So if you own something like that, that's an appreciable asset. It makes a lot of money. And look at Hong Kong, the Hong Kong MTR. Now, of course, probably now they're probably not making money with all the protests down. Hong Kong is now doubly shut down thanks to not just China meddling and causing the protests, but also now because of Corona Chan coming in. So this is not a good thing for Hong Kong, but sans all of that, the Hong Kong MTR makes boatloads of money because they own all the stations over there. Now, the difference between when the government runs rail and when private companies run rail is just that. When governments run rail, they basically make a bare bones station. Just look at New York City. Does anybody want to be in those stations? No. Everybody wants to get on the trains and get as quickly out as possible. Nobody wants to stick in those stations. Everybody just wants to just go to the train. That's it. Funny, nice, you'll get some guy that's breakdancing on the station or, banging some drums or actually making some good beats on their keyboard. But apart from that, not much happens in New York rail stations. They're dingy, dirty, disgusting, and not places where of central happenings. Let's put it that way. Yeah, you do have some funky European stations, though. If we look at stations and look at them as places like public squares. Okay. Now, New York has done a good station, though, recently. We're not talking about Grand Central Station, because Grand Central Terminal is, by far and large a classic, and also makes money, because I think the station itself is partly privately owned now, just the station. But the Oculus is a beautiful example of what can happen when governments pay attention and say, well, maybe we can go ahead and make a mall in the station, and that would be great. So that's a good thing. And I have visited the Oculus plenty of times. It is a good thing. Yeah, train stations could bring back malls. Again, not mega malls. Mega malls are not going to be a thing in America anymore. Probably more smaller malls, or if you have a mega mall that's also a station. Again, it's only going to be very few Class A malls in America. A lot of Class C malls are dead or dying at this point. A lot of Bs are hanging on. What would MTA privatization look like? That's a good question. We will talk about this again on an episode I am planning for March, the New York MTA versus the Tokyo Metro, in which we're going to compare and contrast the differences between the two and what can we learn from them. Yeah, just look at Miami Central is the perfect example of what we should be doing. We should be doing multi-use real estate that not only just houses the station, but Miami Central is also now opening for registration if you want to go ahead and live in Miami Central. They have 2 massive apartment buildings there now. As well as they've opened up Central Fair. There's some restaurants open there. They're opening up more stores. So it's getting there. And then they're going to be opening up this massive, what they call a super tower. I think that's still in the plans. All right, guys. I think that's it for now. We're at a minute. Oh, I'm sorry. We're at an hour and 6 minutes, guys. 32 of you are watching. Thank you so much for joining, being on board the American Rail Club. It has been a pleasure to be your conductor and host on this wild ride. Yours truly, Demetrius Villa. We will see you guys soon. There is an episode coming this week on California's defiance of the FRA. So be on the lookout for that. We will see you soon. We'll do another live stream soon. And also, if you are a Patreon, we are getting out the caps this month as well for those of you who have done the pledge for that, as well as shirts. And for those of you who have pledged for shirts, we are doing 2 shirts for you. So one's going to be an American Rail Club shirt that's going to say ARC on it. The one that I usually wear, if I can find it somewhere in the house, I would wear it more. But I think it's been lost in the laundry shuffle. But we're also going to be doing new t-shirts as well, more professionally designed. So we will be doing that. So thank you all for joining. We will see you all next time. Thank you for riding. Take care and God bless and stay safe. Don't let Corona-chan get you. Goodbye now.